bluebird weather.
Chirp.
Chirp, chirp, chirp.
Not only that, unless you're a farmer and you're worried about the subsoil moisture, this weather's saving you a lot of bucks.
It is, huh?
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Interesting angle. We shall pick up with Dr. Walt, the complete forecast, right after these commercial messages.
Yeah, it has been a strange February. 80s in Texas, 60s in Nebraska, 40s in North Dakota. The mildness continues out west. The coldest we could find this morning anyplace in the 48 contiguous states, 6 above in Wyoming. Strangeness. We do have one thing that's a little bit different. We've had the first storm come out of the southwest in quite some time. It's now just moving into Illinois, causing all sorts of thunder flurries, thunderstorms and snow in most of southeastern Wisconsin. Just nicked a little bit of southeastern Minnesota the last few hours, and it doesn't cause any particular problems. The almanac shows what I just told you, that we didn't have any precipitation officially today at the airport, and we're at 38 inches for the season. As Don mentioned, the normal season total is around 43, 44 inches here in the Twin Cities, so we've had a pretty good snow season. Here, as far as the temperature department, it's a big yawn. 34 for the low, 38 for the high. That's way above the normals of 26 and 7. And that means we're starting to pile up some of them their degree days. Now, we check this every once in a while, and for those of you not familiar with what a degree day is, it's kind of a funny name, but I think we'll show you just how it's computed, and that'll give you the idea. You take the day's average temperature, which today happens to be 36. We subtract that from a base of 65. The 65 is the temperature at which heating engineers assume most people turn on their thermostats. So today we piled up 29 of the degree days. Well, the heating season starts on the 1st of January, and normally we would accumulate on a normal year 5,486 degree days. This season we've only had 5,112, or 374 degrees less than normal. Now, the number of degree days very closely parallels your heating bill, so that means you've got the equivalent there of about 8 or 9 days of free heat. Yes, sir. When you pay your bill, you'll probably notice that. Satellite photograph shows, however, some interesting weather. Minnesota is still very much under the bank of clouds, as you can see, although there's some clearing out in the western portion of North and South Dakota. Then that low that's moving to our south happens to have a tornado box with it, as we call it, a severe weather watch area. There's already been a tornado south of Springfield, Illinois, not too much damage. Thunder has already moved up into Wisconsin. This is what you call April weather, about 2 months early. Here comes some clearing tonight, and then for tomorrow, it looks like we got another storm that's going to be racing southeastwards out of, well, the old Alberta Clipper. Here it comes. The clouds will move out briefly later tonight. We'll get some partial clearing tomorrow. Another bank of clouds will come moving right on in from the northwest, and yes, sir, it looks like rain and or snow beginning around the Twin Cities sometime later tomorrow night. The whole thing is just going to move right on through. The mild air continues. The forecast map for tomorrow night at this time, what does it show? It shows just what I said it would show. Low pressure system entering the state, tracking southeastwards, a combination of rain in southern Minnesota, rain and snow mix in the central part of the state, snow in the north. Temperatures in the low 40s or upper 30s in the Twin Cities area. So if you notice the drought area in the southern plains, which is predicted to be dry for the next 30 days, still no precipitation, very mild temperatures. Around the neighborhood right now, cloudy. Few lingering snow flurries in southeastern Wisconsin moving away. Just about everybody is above freezing. Suppose we ought to check what the local observers saw on our Metropolitan Observer Network. Everybody just about came up with temperatures between 35 and 40 degrees this afternoon for high temperatures. No real change there. And snow depth from 0 just 30 miles south of the city to about 5 to 12 or 11 inches north of the city. The radar has shown a little bit of moist clouds out towards Wayzata and Chaska. Most of the precipitation is staying up in the sky. Might have a flake or a drop fall down, and that's it. As far as the current conditions, 36 is the temperature, +2 Celsius. 30 is the dew point. The outside humidity, 79%. North at 6, the winds, 2973 going up the barometer. Those cloudy skies, as we said, might yield a flake or a drop tonight, but it'll continue mild with steady temperatures in the low 30s. Then tomorrow, variably cloudy, some sun in the morning, but clouding up in the afternoon with rain, possibly mixed with snow from the cities northwards, developing through the afternoon or the evening. Mild temperatures, 36 to 43, with south to southeast winds. Happy April.
Yes, indeed. It's unbelievable, but, you know, I still think we're being lulled a little bit here. You know,
we
it's
could
going to
get
happen.
clobbered, just watch.
Could, we will,
Yeah.
I predict. Thank you, Walt.
highlighting this day was a lack of snow, and we are all now sitting around wondering what the next storm is going to do.
I'm not sure there will be a next one. The weather, instead of being a lamb or a lion, is now sort of coming out to be like a turkey. And I'd like to thank the Como Zoo for sending over that menagerie last night. I learned that I'll never be a Clyde Beatty.
I trust that the forecast will not be a turkey. We'll be looking at that in just a moment. And in this day of environmental awareness, there's a move to bring that subject into the classroom. We'll learn who's teaching the teachers when we get to that story right after the weather.
Have you ever wondered what an astronaut sees, say, 100 miles above the surface of the Earth at sunrise? Well, he might see a scene like this, which was photographed by one of the Skylab astronauts over the Pacific Ocean. I'm going to be sort of thinking about those kind of questions myself for the next 3 days. I'm going to be in Houston, Texas at the Manned Spacecraft Center. There's a symposium of scientists who are trying to answer the question, what are we going to do with Space Shuttle? That's going to be the new generation space station launched about 1980. In particular, what would meteorologists do? Well, I'm not quite sure what I'd see from 100 miles up either, but I think I know what we'd see from about 22,000 miles out, because that's where this satellite picture is taken. This is today's picture over the northern plains, and clouds, plenty of clouds. Now, all this moisture started out in the Gulf of Mexico about 2 days early. It was brought north, hit the boundary of the polar air, and just was forced up to about 5,000 feet, and the moisture's just been dropping out of it ever since it's so warm aloft. We've had a lot of light freezing drizzle over much of southern Minnesota. The snows over the last 36 to 48 hours have piled up. Portions of North Dakota, portions of northern Minnesota, and into Michigan have had reports of over 10 inches of snow. Locally, right now, the only significant snow seems to be the extreme northern part of Minnesota around Virginia. They report a little bit of blowing snow. Visibility is down to a half mile. The local storm accumulation is the maximum, about 7 inches at Litchfield, and over at Cumberland, about 7 inches. Taking a look at our radar right now, though, if I point the beam straight up, I can just see the fuzziness in the clouds. You can't see this on your home screen, which indicates that right now the precipitation in this area, while it is falling, is very, very light, barely accumulating, and the precipitation in northern Minnesota is outside of the range of our radar on the 125 nautical mile range. So if we look at the almanac, all the precipitation that fell today, it amounted to nothing more really than a trace, at least officially at the airport. The storm total officially was 2.7 inches. Temperature was pretty calm. It just went from 22 to 26, rattled around all day. The highest temperature within the observer network was 28, so whatever has fallen has stayed quite frozen. And it looks like winter on the ground now. The observers went out, and the snowfall that fell since 5 o'clock yesterday, we have that coming up here around the metro net. It was very light. Most people just reported a trace, as did the airport. The highest amounts were to the north and northwest of the city, around an inch. Bringing the total on the ground now, this is the total snowfall. It varies quite a bit, though, from about 1 inch southeast of the cities to 3 inches in the cities themselves, and up to 10 inches north and northeast of the cities. So that is the story of what was. What will be, it looks like there's some good news. There is still this clashing of air masses. For instance, today, record high in Peoria, 74 degrees. Rockford, Illinois, the other side of the front, 37. 91 at Dallas, Texas. The nation's low, minus 28, Butte, Montana. But it looks as if the cold but clearing skies are gradually going to be pushing down in our direction. In fact, let's take a look at the forecast map we expect tomorrow night. It should have the snow gradually exiting from Minnesota, clearing skies pushing in tomorrow night. It'll be cold for the next few days. Widespread light precipitation will probably stay mostly to our south. So the big storm so far has never really formed. It just came out in a series of very weak impulses. There's still about 1 chance in 5 that's low in Oklahoma could really pop its cork, but right now the indications are that the clearing zone to our northwest might even be reaching us by sometime tomorrow night. And currently over the state, light snow to our north and west, freezing drizzle and snow grains, very light over southern Minnesota and drizzle, and even thunderstorms down towards Milwaukee where it's above freezing. And the weather is just gradually, the storm's petering out is about what it comes down to. 25 Fahrenheit, the current temperature, minus 4 Celsius, 88% the relative humidity, the dew point is 22. Winds are rather light now, northeast at 6. Very light freezing drizzle and very light snow. Those are the weather symbols that pilots use, so we'll use them too. They're shorter to write. 2991, steady to slowly falling the barometer. So tonight, cloudy, occasional light freezing drizzle and snow, no real accumulation. The low is 18 to 24. Tomorrow, cloudy, the few lingering snow flurries and patches of freezing drizzle, and I wouldn't get too excited about it. By tomorrow night, I think it'll begin to clear off and be not too terribly bad.
All right, doesn't sound too bad at all. In fact, I might even look forward to spring when Minnesotans will be taking to
There really is such a thing as a tornado alley, but those deep south states have just been ravaged by those tornadoes,
Well,
it seems, in the last year or so.
We'll talk about that. And one answer to a question that's often asked, what's the strongest winds in a tornado? Probably only 250 miles an hour.
I would guess, dear friends, we have much more tranquil weather to talk about in our area. We
Yeah.
shall get to that from the doctor in just a moment.
A young man was once advised to go west. Well, if he started in northern Wisconsin, he'd find some light snow, then he'd get himself a case of the cloudies in eastern Minnesota, and he'd suddenly find fair weather, nice conditions in the western part of our state, and on out right to the Rockies, and it really is getting rather pleasant. It wasn't exactly that way. The almanac shows the temperature on this, the anniversary of the warmest March day ever, 83 in 1968. We got up only to 45 today, which happens to be exactly normal, though. The low overnight last night was 36 degrees. As far as the precipitation, officially at the airport, 3/10 of an inch of snow actually fell today. It should be snow. 3/10 of an inch of snow fell, bringing the monthly total up to 13.6, and the seasonal total, as we call it, since last November, up to 53.3 inches. And the radar shows that, well, let's put it this way. Earlier today, there was a lot of things to be seen on radar. Today, at this point in time, we have just a few very light sprinkle echoes down to the south and southeast of the Twin Cities, sprinkles and flurries. They are dissipating rather rapidly. See something down there near Faribault. It may not even be hitting the ground. It's quite weak. Around the neighborhood, though, we had a bit of surprise. If you went south and east of the cities, a 3/10 of an inch at the airport never did stick on the ground, but it did stick over in western Wisconsin, and Red Wing reported as much as 4 inches on the ground. That was sort of a little local surprise. Actually, that snow extended down into Iowa in parts. It was a wet snow, didn't stay very long. Most of it was water. This is the rain which fell in the 24 hours from 5 p.m. yesterday to today. Over in Roberts, they had 1.22 inches of a total precipitation when you melted down their snow. The storm total for the whole mess was quite a bit heavier. We didn't have a complete set of reports for the 2-day rain, but an inch to an inch and a half to the east of the Twin Cities, about just under an inch itself in the cities themselves seems to be the amount, and it gets quite a bit less as you drop off to the west, less than a half inch out towards the west side of Lake Minnetonka. So that is the storm that was. It is now centered on the upper peninsula of Michigan, going into Canada. It's going bye-bye. And in back of it, we have nothing terribly exciting if you're looking for exciting weather, just high-pressure system, relatively few clouds, seasonable temperatures, kind of mild for the next few days. Satellite picture shows, though, the storm as it started out the day. Well, let's take a look at one thing, though. There is a very interesting statistic. This has been had, this month of March, 1976, a record number of tornadoes. Stan was mentioning the tornado alley. Well, you know, it is a seasonal thing. During the month of February and March, we find most of our tornadoes along the Gulf Coast, where most of the March tornadoes have been, though some of them have been as far north as the ones today in Michigan. As we get into April and May, the tornado alley moves up into Oklahoma and Kansas, Missouri, and Iowa. Finally, by June and July and August, it moves up into our neck of the woods, the northern plains in Minnesota. Well, the ones that we've had for March, though, mostly in the Gulf Coast area, well, the average number is 41. So far this March, we have had 187 tornadoes. Certainly a record month, nothing like the one we had in 1941. The satellite photograph that we did have today shows the storm system, which caused not only the rain and snow in our neck of the woods, but 2 tornado boxes were evident at the time this picture was taken. One of them in Michigan, which was associated with the fatal tornadoes in this area. Other tornadoes broke out through the south today. Total of 17 tornadoes. And if you watch the jet stream wind as we go into weather in motion, you can see the 100 to 200 mile an hour winds just being indicated by the cirrus elements as they just zip along. Underneath here, we had softball-sized hail, reports of up to 3 inches of rain in portions of Tennessee. 50 trailers were blown over in portions of northeastern Texas. It was a wild day to the south. And the weather map shows, however, by tomorrow, the map will be just high pressure through the central U.S. The storm will be up into Canada and gone. So looks like we have a nice day coming up. The current conditions aren't bad. It's still 44 degrees, rather warm, plus 7 Celsius. The humidity's 51%. The winds are dying down northwest only at 10 now. Cloudy skies, and the barometer is steady at 29.88. The forecast says cloudy, but then gradual clearing later tonight. Colder as the lows, mid to upper 20s, low 30s. And then tomorrow, mostly sunny. A very nice day, I think. Mild high, the upper 40s to the low 50s.
Just a spot better than waking up this morning to snow, eh?
Definitely.
We can kiss that stuff goodbye. Thank you.
Doesn't have to eat it that fast.
Yes, it is. Beautiful day today.
Would you like a better one tomorrow?
I'd love one.
Well, you're a nice guy. I'll give it to you. You and our other 500,000 viewers or whatever.
I thought you were in sales, not production. But all of a sudden you're creating weather
It's a
for
free
us.
sample for April.
All right, we'll move on to the forecast when we continue in just a moment.
It's spring.
I don't even know if you could say March is going out like a lamb. It's going out more like a little itty-bitty putty-tat. It's just pretty calm, cool, and collected almost over the entire country right now. There's some precipitation to our southeast. The jet stream winds are sending it away from us, so it's really going to be a nice way to end off the month of March, which was, for the on the whole, a pretty wild, turbulent one in many parts of the country. Why don't we look at, though, the 30-day outlook for April? These are, of course, advisories. They're produced by the National Weather Service Extended Forecast Office in Washington, D.C., with the help of the big computer, which sometimes isn't any smarter than we are. But the best guess, and this is about as good as you're going to get on a 30-day forecast, says there's going to be a reversal in the temperature pattern. Most of the south is going to be colder. That includes the central U.S. We're going to have Minnesota. We can expect near normal conditions with warmer weather than normal in the northeast and in the northwest. Of course, it's always nice to define normal right here in the Twin Cities. For April, the high jumps from 47 to 63 on the average, and the lows go from 28 all the way up to 41. It's been as warm as 92 in April here in the Twin Cities. Never has it been below zero. +2 is the coldest we've been. However, the normal precipitation happens to be 2.5 inches of snow and over 2 inches of rain. And it looks like the U.S. in terms of precipitation could be divided up to the southeast half is going to be wetter than normal. That includes the area where they're still very much worried about the wheat crop due to the drought we've been having for the last 6 to 9 months. The western part of the U.S., including most of Minnesota, more likely than not, will be drier than normal conditions. So that is the story right now. It is dry all the way out west. The temperatures are warming up rather nicely. 75 in Montana. The coldest we could find any place in the country this morning in the Colorado Rockies, 2 above zero. So that's a good sign that spring is coming. The satellite photograph shows that we're right on the edge, however, of some inclemency. The low-pressure system which swept up through here yesterday is now well into Canada for the most part, but the clouds lingered right along the river. You could see them standing downtown in the Twin Cities today, just out across the river. There they were. Weather in motion, we could see them sort of just sitting here. There was light rain and snow in portions of Wisconsin. Actually, it got quite close into Eau Claire. They had some snow flurries today. But with the nearest front way upwind, we have this whole beautiful area of weather for tomorrow and mostly Friday. So by tomorrow, we can pretty well expect to be in a southwesterly flow of air. Temperatures to our south in the 70s. They'll be getting into the 60s over almost all of Minnesota, or at least the upper 50s. The front, which will be between Mott and Hoople, North Dakota, will very slowly wiggle along. It'll extend down between Happiness and Love, California, but it's going to take a good 24 hours to get here, and it might not even bring any precipitation or drastic temperature change when it comes through on Friday. Around the area right now, it is fair to partly cloudy. Out to our west, where our weather comes from, it's really been a nice day. The almanac shows that we had a reversal of yesterday's rainy conditions. There is none at all today. The month of March has had 2.83 inches. That's 1.2 inches above normal, I might add. Certainly no drought here. The temperatures, well, 53 was the high, which is above normal. The low last night was 35. And let's turn on the radar. It's on the tight end range, the 100-kilometer range, and that stuff that looks like fungus all over the place, that's not precipitation. That is our normal ground clutter pattern, which happens when part of the beam gets down low to the ground and picks up buildings and targets. So we see no precipitation within 100 kilometers or 55 nautical miles of the Twin Cities at this time. And the lows this morning, the lowest was only 29. The highest low, so to speak, was 35. So it was mostly a sub or above freezing night. And the highs today, most people managed to get into the 50s, and we even had a 58 at Lakeland, the warmest in the metro area. Wasn't that nice? Right now the conditions aren't bad either. An even 50 degrees, which is exactly +10 Celsius for those who care. 27 is the very low dew point, thanks to a 17 dew point, very dry air. Northwest winds are 15, gusting to 21, but they're diminishing. The barometer's 29.92 going up. The sun is shining, which it hasn't been doing this time of night lately for the last 6 months. Fair tonight and tomorrow, a little colder tonight, the lows 20 to 32. Then tomorrow, warmer, the highs 55, up even into the low 60s with gentle southwest winds. It's going to be a great way to start off April, I think.
Looks fantastico. Golf courses ought to dry out a little bit, be open pretty quick.
Friday.
Of Minneapolis. And the story of the hour, I guess, in weather continues to be rain or no.
No. And that's probably also the answer for any more frost in the area the next day or two.
We did get some hard freeze last night, didn't we?
North and east of the cities like we expected.
All right, we'll look at the entire forecast when we continue in a moment.
Well, it was chilly. A huge high-pressure system came visiting down from Canada. It happens to be centered in southern Illinois, but it's caused record low temperatures as far south as Shreveport, Louisiana, Walter. And outside of a few spots in the Rockies, the coldest temperature we could find officially at any of the stations was a double 29 at both the Falls and Hibbing, Minnesota. But last night we said in those outlying areas around the Twin Cities, those non-official observer stations that we're beginning to trust a lot, we could expect freezes north and east of the city. Well, that's what happened. Both Delano and Anoka came in with 29s. There was also a little bit of sub-freezing activity at Rosemont and Montgomery to our south, but there was definite vegetation damage north of the city, and yeah, it can still keep happening well into the month of May, particularly in outlying areas. In the city itself, the urban heat island flexed its muscles. Right here at KSTP, we didn't go below 47 last night. Your tomatoes would have been safe in town, at least. It did warm up, though. The sun started shining today, and 82 in the northern part of Minneapolis was a very pleasant, warm temperature, and everyone else was pretty close behind, upper 70s, low 80s, around the observer network. But it is dry, and we've got the radar on full power, full blast, and there is nothing out there except range marks and town names. I mean, there is a drought. Even extreme southeastern Minnesota has had more rain than it is normal this time of year, but most of the rest of the state is very, very shy indeed. In fact, if we look at the almanac, how dry I am is becoming sort of a dirge. And we had nothing in the official bucket today out at the airport. There's just a request for a little rain because the combined precipitation for April and so far into May is now 2.5 inches shy here in the Twin Cities, and they're even less than that in southwestern Minnesota where soil moisture was dry to start off the year, so that is not good. The temperatures, well, officially at the airport, 40 up to 75 was the record, and it was an oldie but coldie back in 1915. The record low of the state, 27 degrees right here in the middle of the Twin Cities, and yes, freezes can occur even in town as late as the 29th of May. So don't be overly optimistic about putting some of those very tender plants out even in the middle of the city. Okay, the satellite photograph, there is one glimmer of hope on the horizon as far as rain. It's this very weak, slow-moving cold front that has produced a few showers out in this area, but you need moisture for showers, even with a front, and what is happening, the little bit that's forming is turning into virga. What's a virga? A virga, well, we have a slide showing it. The rain forms way up high, and it comes dropping down through the air, and the dew points are so low, rain often evaporates even before it hits the surface, and that is the kind of thing that's happening. Well, as this front slowly moves eastwards into our Minnesota vicinity the next few days, there might be some moisture starting to move up from the Gulf of Mexico, but the threat of showers is pretty much limited. No big precipitation amounts are foreseen. By tomorrow night, the forecast map shows that the front will be moving into northwestern Minnesota very slowly. Southwesterly flow of dry air keeping temperatures in the 80s throughout the entire region. Very slight chance of light shower activity north of us, and that's the best I can offer as far as precipitation. Right now, across the 5-state region, the skies are generally fair. That very slow-moving front does have a few scattered sprinkles in the western Dakotas, but they're really not helping anybody very much. It's going to be cool tonight, but any threat of a freeze is going to be in only eastern Wisconsin. We will not have a frost or freeze anywhere in the metro area tonight, I'm happy to say. In fact, it's still 62 Fahrenheit or 17 Celsius, 34 Fahrenheit the low dew point, 35% the humidity, clear skies, winds are still southeast at 8. As the high breaks down, the barometer's falling slowly at 29.94. So tonight clear and not so cold, 36 in the coldest spots to 51 in town. Then tomorrow fair and warmer, the highs upper 70s. We might even see an 85 in the network, and those south to southwest winds will pick up, and there's a slight chance of showers on Thursday, and temperatures will continue a little bit cool during the nighttime hours through the weekend, but near normal daytime highs. So Thursday looks like our best shot for anything, and it's not a good one.
If we just get one real good drenching, then we could all sit back and relax and enjoy the great weather and not worry about the crops and
a
the
lot
gardens.
of farmers would be saved if that happened.
It is not a laughing matter at this point.
No.
Fishermen, no open fires. The gas cook stove is okay, but no open campfires.
Yeah,
and I guess the dryness continues?
Yeah, very slight chance of some showers over the weekend, but Minnesota has not shared in the water that's fallen over much of the areas to the south of the Midwest.
Ooh, we need to get some. We'll look at the full forecast when we continue in just a moment.
At Midwest Federal.
Well, we gaze at yonder 5-state map and discover temperatures generally in the 50s. They mild up into the 60s out west. Fair weather is moving our way. The showers and the clouds which pestered us early today are drifting very slowly southeastwards, and we note some showers continue in eastern Wisconsin. And let's take a look at the radar. We've got it on the long range, the one that goes all the way out to 250 nautical miles. And in eastern Wisconsin, as the beam comes around, we see a couple airplanes up by Anoka, and I think they're ours, but we don't pick up the showers. Now, does that mean we don't have a very good radar? Not really. Now that the kids are asleep, I think there's something we ought to tell you about radar.
folks. Every radar, including ours, has one characteristic. Christopher Columbus sort of made a living at proving the world was round, and it is. And this is what happens. Okay, here's the Earth. And when that beam leaves the antenna, it goes out. Well, it sort of goes above the surface of the Earth. So when we have it on the short range, the 55-mile range, the beam's only about 6,000 feet above the Earth. But as it keeps going, by the time it gets out to 250 kilometers, our beam, everybody's beam, gets up to about 40,000 feet. Now, we can see a rain shower out there, but only if it's 40,000 feet high. The little ones that just give those light showers usually are around 10,000, 15,000 feet. However, though we don't normally detect much beyond about 150 miles, if we ever do see something out at 250 miles, it means it's big and nasty, and it's worth looking at. So that's just something to know when you look at our radar. We can see just about most things out to 125 to 150 miles. We also saw that this morning there was some precipitation that fell out of the sky, and as Ron said, it was quite patchy. Most of it, the heavier amounts, were right here in the city, 2,900ths at KSTP, and that was just about the most we had. Also up at New Hope, 2,900ths of an inch. As far as the high temperatures today, 71 at Big Lake and Delano. That was where it cleared off first. Over in the eastern part of the metro area, it stayed in the upper 50s, where the clouds lingered the longest. And let's take a look at the almanac for today, because it shows the dryness continues, even in spite of the fact that the airport had 2,900ths officially, getting us up to a mere 3,800ths for the month of April, or May. Remember, April was also a very dry month, so we're in a minor drought. As far as the high officially today, got up to 63. The low overnight last night was 55, but it continues to fall below that. And in the east, it's very cool. Temperatures only 20 degrees this morning at Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania. In the south, widespread heavy rain and thunderstorms. We move out west. Temperatures are hot, 107 in the interior of California. But right here in the Midwest, we have a blob of rather placid, mild high pressure moving our way. And there is one particular low pressure system over the Windy City. And the Windy City was not named that way because the wind velocities are high there. It's because of all the politicians' hot air. Just thought you might want to know that. But it does show up in the satellite picture that was taken today. And this is the cloud band that was affecting us. It just moved out here just as the sun was setting. And this looks like a pretty nice area of pleasant weather coming our way. And we hope. The trouble is, as we look at weather in motion, that the cloud band is moving really very, very slowly. So it'll probably stay just about here for the next day or two. So we have a very slight threat of some showers from this later tomorrow and Saturday. And then Sunday, another system moving in from the west gives us a slight threat of showers. It's not a big threat. It is fishing weekend. The temperatures will be decent, but, well, it could be a better one, I suppose, like in the 80s, and no threat of rain. 54 currently, a new low for the day, 12 Celsius. 46 is the dew point, 74% the humidity. It's on the increase, as the pressure is, 2985. The winds are southeast at 3 with very clear skies and fair tonight, but some fog could develop as the temperature drops below that dew point, 40 to 48 for lows. And tomorrow, mostly fair and mild, the high 68 to 75, with very light southwest winds. So the weekend, except for that slight threat of showers late Saturday and Sunday, looks pleasant and generally near 70 temperatures during the day.
Okay, so if we have some nice temperatures and get even a little rain, I guess it helps, even little bits. It was a...
Well, it's all over but the shouting. And most of the shouting was, hey, where's that snow? Remember, we were talking about a fair amount of snow. It was closer than a lot of people in the metro area might think. The low, first of all, started out in the mountains and then passed just south of the Twin Cities this morning. It's now up near Green Bay, which, if you remember last night's forecast, is exactly where the center of the storm was supposed to be. But the center of the storm actually is one of the safer places to be if you're trying to avoid precipitation. Let's take a look, for instance, at the map of total precipitation, and it landed just in the right spot. All last summer, the area that was being avoided was southwestern Minnesota. They had 1.25 inches of total precipitation, and that is the axis of the heaviest total water content to the north or to the left of the storm track. Very typical pattern, as a matter of fact. If we look at the immediate area, the total amount of precipitation melted down. It was quite variable, only 0.68 of an inch at the airport, but right here at KSTP we had 1.25 inches out of Delano, 1.5 inches, Le Sueur likewise 1.5 inches. Good solid rain. We needed it. As far as the snowfall, it was there. The loser, so to speak, was Winter. Winter, South Dakota had 11 inches, and the 8-inch or more area was through here, and then 6 inches or more, and then 4 inches or more, and then 2 inches just northwest of the Twin Cities. This is snow that fell in the storm. Most of the accumulation is now over, except for lingering flurries, particularly in northern Minnesota. Our own metro area, as of 5 o'clock, you can see that in the cities in south and east, there was only a trace of snow, but as you go about 30 miles to the northwest, indeed, there is 1 to 3 inches of snow that came down in the storm. Big Lake had 2 inches of snow. Same, about 1.5 inches at Bethel and Delano, 1.5 inches. So that's how close it came, within 30 miles of the downtowns of the respective cities. So, well, let's take a look at the nationwide low pressure or low temperature patterns. In the teens out in this area, and the low temperatures last night in the 50s in the southeast. This is the thermal contrast, the difference in heat, which is driving the storm. So as the storm moves northeastwards, the cooler air is going to sweep in, and back of it, it's going to be fairly brisk tonight, but not exceptionally cold. And weather in motion, well, it shows a couple of things, like that big front in the east. That's one that went through here yesterday. It caused some severe weather early today. But generally, what we're just going to stay in is this lingering cloud cover for the next day or two. And another storm developing over the southern mountains doesn't look as going to have a significant effect on us. One thing that's quite amazing is the fact that the dust which was picked up in Oklahoma yesterday is being blown all the way to the east coast. 1 mile visibility in Jacksonville, Florida, due to blowing dust that started out in Colorado the day before yesterday. Amazing. So this is the story. Just have lingering northerly flow, clouds and flurries and cold conditions through tomorrow. Nothing terribly exciting. The forecast map then for tomorrow night suggests that we will have just that. The low will move off to the northeast, and it'll be near freezing for high temperatures tomorrow, and the rain system over the Rockies will stay down in Texas. Generally a rather mild weather map for this time in February. The flaky frolics continue. It looks like a lot of snow, but actually it's quite light over the entire region. The precipitation is ending. The satellite photograph shows, however, it is very cloudy over the 5-state region right now, and it'll stay that way. These clouds will move out very, very slowly. And the radar shows, this is on the short range, the 60-mile range, there's a lot of light snow flurry activity in the area, but most of it is not going to have significant accumulation. So at the airport, light snow the last hour, the barometer 29.18, rising though, west winds gusting to 28 miles an hour. 15 is the dew point, and that 24 temperature is the day's low. It started out at 37 at midnight. So, cloudy west to northwest winds tonight, gusting at times over 20 miles an hour, occasional light snow and flurries, a 50% chance. 1 inch additional at most, not even that likely. Lows near 12 degrees by tomorrow, then cloudy with highs near freezing tomorrow, and the flurries continuing, but only a 30% chance of real accumulation. Breezy, though, winds west to northwest up to 22 miles an hour. So a wintry type day. What you got?
A little more seasonal. Plastic non-returnable milk carton. A very hot consumer issue.
Well, it's just about over. The roads, however, are not all that good. It's going to continue flurrying and snowing very lightly tonight through tomorrow. The roads have iced up. While water was there, has frozen. They're slick. Travelers' advisories are up for portions of northern Minnesota. If you don't have to drive, I suggest you sit at home and watch television, mainly the show. You'll love it. The low now is up on the upper peninsula of Michigan, tracked just south of us during the morning, and it's sort of formed in the mountains, and it had a pretty good run as storms go. It was about 3 on a scale of 5, I would suggest. And trying to look at sum it all up, for instance, the almanac, the temperature department doesn't say much. It started out at 37 degrees for the high and slowly has been descending down to the current temperature of 23, which is the day's low. This storm has had quite a bit of history. And let's sort of take a look at some of the things that it did. First of all, it had an impact on the drought, which was most severe in the upper Midwest and also along the Pacific coast, and has been expanding to much of the interior of the U.S. And the storm was at its full maximum height yesterday as it went through the central plains, a lot of snow with it, and huge clouds of blowing dust in the desert southwest. But as that storm went through the Pacific area, it caused up to 3 feet of powder snow in California. But there were cloud seeding in states like Oregon and Colorado, where they desperately needed rain and where they think they added maybe 15% to the snowfall. They didn't dance in the streets at Vail. They skied. That's the first good snow they've had. But in the Colorado plains, it was different. In Greeley, Colorado, winds of 70 or 80 miles an hour blew. This is the dust cloud as it came through portions of Oklahoma. They said it was like the 55 and 36 dust storms. In Oklahoma City, during the day, the visibility was a 1/16 of a mile in blowing dust, and that dust cloud went all the way to the Atlantic coast. Up in Grand Forks, they had to shovel it. There was a lot of inconvenience, I suppose, but the important thing is the snow did fall, 8 to 12 inches along this line to our northwest. We were right on the fringe of the storm here in the Twin Cities, but more important is when you melt this down, what did it do? When it formed liquid water, it was exactly in the right spot, 1.25 inches or more in southwestern Minnesota, where the drought was most severe last year. But we need many, many more storms before we even have a chance of a normal crop season here in Minnesota. So that seems to be the bottom line out of a lot of good and a lot of bad out of that one storm. Looking around the observer network, the news snow up till early evening, it did come very, very close to us, up to 2 inches in the northwestern part of our metro area. Trace are a little bit more right here in the cities proper. The total precipitation out of it, if you melt it down for the 2 days, only 6,800s at the airport, but up to 1.5 inches at some of our reporting stations, particularly west and southwest at Delano and Le Sueur and places like that. And we love every drop and flake of it. We're going to need it when the summer comes and the potential drought renews. So by tomorrow, what are we going to see? The storm is going to go up into Canada. We're going to continue with the northerly flow of fairly cool air. Temperatures tomorrow will barely reach freezing for highs. Lingering snow flurries, particularly northeast of our area. Another precipitation system will go through the southern plains, leaving most of the central Midwest seasonably mild and precipitation-free. 5-day outlook is a study in Blas. Temperatures will be a little bit chilly on the weekend, but nothing very cold, and a bunch of partly cloudies to start the beginning of next week. Current 5-state area, just a lot of widespread light snow and flurry activity, fairly windy, some blowing and drifting. As we said, the roads are not particularly appealing. Take a quick peek at the radar. Most of the flurry activity is not strong enough to even show up. The heaviest flurries seem to be across the river southwest of Spooner, and those flurries are drifting southeastwards, but the whole area is getting light snow here and there. In fact, at the airport they have at 10 o'clock been reporting light snow with a rising barometer 29.29. Northwest winds are gusting up to 23 miles an hour with a current temperature of 23 Fahrenheit or -5 Celsius. It feels chilly out there. There's no doubt about that. So tonight, cloudy and windy, west to northwest winds gusting over 25 miles an hour with occasional light snow and flurries, a 40% chance of any more accumulation than any one spot. Half-inch additional maximum is the most we'll see throughout the area. The lows near 12 degrees by morning. Then tomorrow, mostly cloudy with occasional flurries, 30% chance of accumulation, which is not much of a chance, and then the highs near freezing during the day, but windy though, still west to northwest winds up to 25 miles an hour. So, don't go out without your overcoat tomorrow. But talk about having problems. 18 below in the state in 1910 in Valley Head, Alabama. Wow, I'm trying to figure out the system that could have caused that. In Alabama, 18 below.
And I guess we shouldn't be going yippee-skippy yet because we are still really in the throes of a drought.
They need 5 or 6 more storms like that just to get back to normal.
I was talking to an acquaintance in San Francisco today. He said, the city's going to be empty this weekend. They finally got snow up at Tahoe and everybody's going skiing.
I bet they are.
In other